Lawyers of Reddit, what is a detail that your client failed to bring up to you that completely lost you the case? Opposing counsel, isn't it true you hit victim in the face with a brick? Client, no, Marcus hit him with a brick. I hit him in the back with a piece of wood. To be fair. Client, no, I didn't. He ran into the brick with his head. He'd sent a photo of his wife's beating face to his wife with a message saying something along the lines of this: "Do you want this to happen again?" He came across very well and caught up to that point, but his mask slipped when that came out. Yay, sounds like someone I know. He can keep the mask on for a while, but it starts to slip when his perceived world isn't reality. Yikes. A buddy of mine case as a public defender. A gal was busted on drug charges and told him she didn't have any drugs on her when they arrested her. He thought, okay, we'll use that. Turns out, she didn't have any drugs on her when they arrested her because she just sold them to an undercover cop. Technically she didn't have any drugs in her, lol. Well, technically, just kidding. I do wonder though if she was actually smart enough to think of that on her own or she was just being stupid. Well, I guess technically she was being stupid either way. LOL. Custody case. Client failed to tell me he was previously convicted of felony child abuse for breaking 16 bones in an infant's body. Sometimes I wish we could stone people. I'm currently up feeding my 5-week-old. No matter how angry my kids make me, I've had 3 boys. I can't imagine harming them, much less that badly. That man is a monster. Client said his ex owed him a lot of money and that she was trying to get out of paying him back by getting a protective order against him. Seemed reasonable, so I took his case. At the hearing it came out that they were never a couple, that he was sending sex toys to her residence on a weekly basis and that she never asked for the thousands of dollars he gave her over the years. Stripper. We lost. He got laughed out of court and he learned a valuable lesson. Tell your lawyer the good and the bad stuff before trial. That he filmed his offenses for his YouTube channel. The cops didn't even know. A witness brought it up on day 3 of a trial. It was a nice quick change of plea that afternoon. So you're saying it's just a prank? Bro, isn't a valid legal defense. What kind of crime was it? There's so many. My dude in a custody battle where the opposing party claims he has a drinking problem and he denies it 1000%. Even after the real talk I have with him asking him to not hide shocks from me, and to be honest, we go into court and at cross-examination the opposing party provides video evidence of him finishing work, driving to an abandoned parking lot to drink a few tall boys and then going to pick up his kid from school. Every single access visit. He not only didn't tell me that, he forgot to mention that his ex's brother owns a private investigator firm. Ducking idiot. It's clearly not a problem. I have time to stop and leisurely drink a few. It's no trouble at all. Man, already have the deck stacked against you and decide, hey, let's play divorce on hard mode. Case as a paralegal. Negligence case. Client argued that a lack of streetlights and a cyclist he couldn't see was responsible for him hitting a wire pole. Upon discovery, the first respondent's report indicated that they found the driver in the driver's seat, pants down, with porn playing on the phone. Wasn't difficult to figure out who was negligent at that point. Your Honor, if the cable repairman had simply fixed the cable in accordance with professional standard practices, my client would have had no other recourse but to keep his ostrich in the corral on the evening in question. How do you literally get caught with your pants down while driving? Employment case. We got to the deposition of my client and all set up. The first question is, please state your name. The client looks at me and says, can we take a break? We do, and she pulls me out in the hall to tell me she's lied to me about her identity. She's apparently a serial fraudster and has changed identities 7 times since the 90s. She apparently thought the other attorneys had somehow figured it out and that's why they asked the question. I've got to Mr. Poe on line 2. Something about a heart. The wicked flee when no man pursueth. Not my client, but the son of the opposing party, and presumably the party himself, lied about being blind to make himself seem more sympathetic as a witness. We didn't know either until he took the witness box. Their counsel asked him to take the oath, and he picked the card up and read it. That was the cherry on top of a series of ridiculous events. The judge dismissed the whole thing in our client's favor shortly after. I was a trainee at the time, but my boss, who was in her late 60s then, said it was the most ridiculous case she'd ever handled. And he picked the card up and read it. I was expecting he easily walked up or sat down, not that he was stupid enough to actually read something out. I mean, plenty of legally blind people could read a card that's right in front of them. Is that the only reason you believe he was lying? Nice. Please smash the subscribe button to enjoy daily AskReddit content. I heard of a guy trying to appeal his disability benefit being revoked. He was supposedly a paraplegic, but the opposition had over 10 minutes of video footage of him walking, running and even jumping over a fence after the 1-minute mark. The judge said, "Okay, I've seen enough. Please leave." Now you put it that way, maybe I did hit the car. Simple is good. Employment law matter. He claimed to have been unfairly dismissed over bogus performance management. The real reason, he organized via Craigslist to have someone collect a box of his cum from a children's playground. There were explicit messages from him asking what they did with it, and whether they rubbed it all over themselves. The employer provided us the messages. Edit. He was doing this on company time. Jesus. If you're going to be a creep, don't do it on company time equipment. WTF is wrong with people? Come again. Client in family law matter lied to me about using meth. Then used meth with the child in the room and the ex got footage of it on the nanny cam and then made excuses about why they couldn't do a drug test, then blamed me when they lost custody. Despite the fact that they didn't show up to appointments or return my calls, so I couldn't prepare any court material. I dumped the client after that and left family law. What kind of law do you do now? I'm a process server and we serve lots of papers for the family courts, and man oh man, it's simultaneously fascinating and disturbing. I was about to complete a land transaction which required my client to have built a road. Indeed, the entire point of the transfer was the road. My client, as I call him prior to completion, turns out I didn't build the road. There was some guy laying down in the mud in front of the bulldozer while another guy tried to give him a towel. Like the contractor ducked off with their money or what? Not mine, but went to court over a ticket. Lady was in front of me for DUI and hit and run. The judge assigns a lawyer for her since she was so shook she quit her job. The judge asked the prosecuting attorney for details on the case. She legit says, "You mean that car I hit while I was intoxicated?" The judge stops, takes his glasses off and says, "Everything is recorded in this courtroom. I told you not to talk to anyone about your case except the attorney that I assigned for you." You could tell he was ready to walk out of the room with the level of stupidity this lady showed. "You mean that car I hit while I was intoxicated?" Oof. What if she said allegedly? Would that be okay? UK not a lawyer as such, but a planning consultant. Client signed sworn affidavit stating he'd been running a truck park business for over 10 years on a piece of land. After 10 years the use becomes immune from legal action. The counsel checked Google Maps and saw immediately he lied. Had only ran the business for 7 years. He had committed a criminal offense by submitting a false sworn affidavit. Plonker. Does Google Maps show dates of establishment then? A defendant was written a cell phone ticket while driving and defended himself. "Your Honor, I was not using a smartphone while driving. I was actually using a flip phone." Guilty. When I was an intern at court, I was watching a battery trial with another intern. The defendant was asked if he can remember how many people were present when he beat up the other guy. He then points at my fellow intern and says rather loudly, "She was there but she didn't see anything. Don't trust her." Of course she wasn't there and the defendant was found guilty. How dumb or high does a person have to be to pour at a complete stranger and think making up shocks that off the wall is going to help them at all? Like how? Isn't that a leading question? Not strictly a court case, but boneheaded stupidity. A number of people have given a false name to police to avoid an arrest warrant, but got arrested when the false name matched someone with an outstanding arrest warrant. https://lowering/net/2020/02/alias warrant. HTML. Amateurs. Everyone knows you just say your name is Keesasos. My name is Rusty Shackelford. Unfair dismissal case. The client claimed to have been dismissed without reason or following procedure. After we had started the case, it comes out that not only was he given 3 written warnings, but he was also called in for a disciplinary hearing before his dismissal. Don't lie to your lawyer. Similar to a doctor, I feel like not telling your lawyer everything can just hurt you. Don't lie to your lawyer, lol. This makes me think of a scenario where the client is just like, nah, yeah, I did it, but you have to help me cause I'll pay you. Estate matter. Client neglected to tell me he had 4 children from a previous marriage. Guess who showed up to challenge the will after he died? They lost, but I would have drafted his will differently had I known. Wait, so he had extra 4 children that he didn't leave anything to? Was it like he just forgot they existed, or did he purposely disinherit them for reasons? Pre-existing medical conditions. We're all going to find out about your prior treatment, moron. Tell your ducking lawyer. Lawyer, why didn't you tell me about this client? I didn't think it was relevant. Lawyer, you pay me to decide what's relevant. Something opposite but worth telling. Years ago, I assisted an attorney whose client was caught in a drug sting operation. After meticulous review of the discovery info received, the officer who typed the arrest report failed to include that defendant, who was charged with possession of controlled substance. Ever had possession of controlled substance? Guy was out that same day for time already served. Ouch, that must sting. Client was injured when he slipped on ice in the common parking lot of his multi-family house. Turns out he was the one responsible for clearing the lot. Thanks, buddy. Story from my dad, who, at the time, was a detective. Guy breaks into a store and steals money and some stuff. The guy's lawyer talks to my dad before the trial. Says they'll be pleading not guilty. Paraphrased my dad. Not guilty? Lawyer. Yes. He has an alibi. My dad. Did he mention to you that we have CCTV footage of him breaking in and committing the crime? Lawyer. My dad. Lawyer. Yeah, we'll be pleading guilty. How did it get all the way to a trial without disclosure? Where can a lawyer make that decision without asking his client about a plea change? I'll duck and do it again. Murder. Hayuk. This made me laugh well more than it should have. Clients lie all the time. 2. Client lies will always be uncovered in relatively early stages of discovery if the lawyers on both sides are doing their jobs at all. I had a client defraud me into taking her case and waste months of my time, only for me to discover that she was lying about everything once the opposing side asked for a bunch of discovery and she refused to provide it and started ducking my calls and making excuses. Can you sue your now ex-client for that? Not me, but my legal studies teacher who used to be a lawyer was representing a woman suing a supermarket for a slip that caused her to hurt her shoulder. She had to tell the court how much it had impacted life and the fact that she couldn't do her everyday tasks. She said, "I can't even lift my arms like this to hang the washing," and proceeded to show the court the exact gesture in perfect form that she was explaining she couldn't do. That was dumb of her to do in court, but I would believe that she could make the gesture briefly but not over and over again. It's like how some people need wheelchairs for distances but can walk a couple feet. I mean, it's possible she couldn't do that while holding the added weight of wet clothes. IDK, do shoulders work like that? I was the one being sued for a car accident. I said he ran the red light. He said I did. Went to the deposition and his attorney was asking about his day-to-day activities since the accident. He stated that most days he takes out the trash, watches TV, and smokes crack. Smokes crack. Anyhow, his attorney decided to drop the case for obvious reasons. Never heard another thing about it. A friend of mine is a lawyer and he said that a client once turned up to court in the actual same outfit he was wearing in the burglary. When the CCTV footage come up in evidence, the client looked down at himself and was like, "Oh, shock," said it. "My first ever awards. Cheers. I knew today wouldn't be a good day to wear my lucky ski mask. Your Honor, I can guarantee you the man on the screen is not me, but he definitely has impeccable taste in fashion." I've got a friend who had their clients leave during recess in court to commit another crime, the same as he was on trial for at the time. She got called to go see him back at the prison when she'd been expecting to see him back in the courtroom. That had to be a drug offense or other substance abuse issue. That guy knows how to criminal Florida style. Fired and wrongly accused of sexually harassing her co-workers at a Christmas party. Turns out she doesn't actually remember the Christmas party because she took an Ambien and was drinking. God damn it, Meredith. Not mine, but saw it in our Reddit led parents. The case was about a woman who took the car from her daughter and grounded her. The daughter called the police and the court proceedings began. Apparently the woman didn't tell her lawyer that the daughter was 22 years old and didn't live with her mom. The mom decided to go to the daughter's place and took her car out without her knowledge. That one was posted a while ago. I remember it. Unfortunately that one seems super fake. The level of detail combined with the total ignorance and continued hole digging by the mom. Although it's a good read. Union rep, not a lawyer. One of our guys fell and hurt his back and was out on disability for an extended time period. Employer likes to send private eyes to check on people on disability and had video of him pressure washing a church. We go into a meeting with HR and it goes like this. We walk in, him slowly and wincing. We sit. HR guy asks how he injured his back. He proceeds to stand up, say I'll show you, and throws himself on the floor, then starts writhing in agony. Myself and HR guy just looked at each other blankly for the 2 minutes this went on. He fired. I have no words. Not telling us they didn't sign a contractual document the whole case rested on. Then not telling us the contract they did provide us with that the case was based upon was obsolete due to the new contract. Basically a shockload of employees passing the buck on the blame for a massive systemic duck up. Edit. We found out during discovery. Fun. I'm slightly confused by the wording. Are you saying they didn't sign the new contract? Or that there is a third document? Asking because normally a new contract wouldn't take effect unless all parties signed it, so couldn't make the previous one obsolete directly. Not a lawyer, but was a union rep for a while. Guy was dismissed for failing a drug test. He seemed to think the union was a magical entity that could somehow help him. I was also a union rep for a bit. This is a very common belief. Union sounds a lot like job insurance to some people. Still can't believe how people put up with drug testing in the workplace in the US. Unless you're a pilot or operator of heavy machinery. This is an insane invasion of privacy. Probably when I was set for trial on a DUI. The day of trial I get a call from the state attorney that it was never disclosed in evidence that the friend my client had been meeting the time of the arrest was a meth dealer, and it was believed my client was in the middle of trying to buy meth. When I confronted him about it, he just looked at me and said I didn't think it was important. It wasn't alcohol. Florida DUIs are alcohol or any controlled substance. Thankfully, kept that out of trial due to late disclosure. Still lost cuz he's an idiot. Florida, yeah, that tracks. Had a client charged with reckless driving for going 200 miles an hour with his pregnant girlfriend in the car. Dude showed up to court with a shirt that had a huge logo of Acme Racing on it. It was years ago and I can't remember the actual name of the racing team. Another client showed up in court very nicely dressed and had even ironed his jeans. But the jeans had giant marijuana leaves all down the front. At least he wasn't there for a drug case. 200 miles an hour. Driving what? Did he steal it from NASCAR? Not a lawyer, but was in court to testify on another case. Accused is pleading guilty and judge tells him to allocute and describe the crime. After the defendant gives a detailed confession, the judge glances at the paperwork and says, "Mr. So-and-so, that's not what you are accused of." The guy groans and says, "Oh, that's the other county." I practiced family law and represented dad going for custody. He had told me that mom has cheated on him with a plethora of men, giving me a list of 15 or 20 names. Names changed obviously. At the day of trial during cross-examination of her, I get to the list. Me. You cheated on him with John Smith. Yes. Her. No. Me. You cheated on him with Mike Davis. Her. No. Me. You cheated on him with. Her. I slept with all of those men. But he was right there with me, and I saw the case dissipate immediately. Bahaha, cucked by his own dumb duckery. Not a lawyer, law student. and not exactly what you asked for, but I feel like it fits here anyways. We read about a criminal case in which there wasn't enough evidence to convict the suspect, so the suspect was not guilty due to reasonable doubt, and he responded, "Thank you, judge, I'll never do it again." Went into appeal and dude got convicted. What case? If he was acquitted, once the verdict was reached, why wouldn't he be immune from double jeopardy? Studierja in gent. Went to attempt to vacate a default judgment worth $1 million. I show up saying my client was never aware of the judgment. Opposing counsel has a signed settlement agreement from my client a month after the judgment was entered, validating the judgment with a detailed payment plan. Judge wrote on my proposed TRO, "Denied," made me look and feel like a total jackass. Not my case, but an attorney I sometimes work with told me that her client in a murder case fired her right before closing arguments and did them himself. You are allowed to represent yourself, which was his last ditch effort as the trial was not looking good for him. He looked the jury right in the eye and said, "If I did do it, it's because she was on her period and crazy." Needless to say, the mostly female jury deliberated for mere minutes. Reminds me of a similar story where a guy really expected the judge to back him for hitting her because she wouldn't stop running her mouth. Clients have a right to contest restitution orders in criminal cases with property loss damage on the grounds is the client so indigent they can never pay the amount back. Burglary client in prison, and I got the restitution papers sent to my office, so I contact him as I have to and ask if he wants to contest it and hold a hearing on ability to pay issue. He does want the bearing and wants to argue he can't pay. Sheriffs bring him back 300 miles to court. I ask on direct if he can ever pay the amount back and he says, "Yeah, I think I could pay it off eventually."